You've come to be a part of family and kids, so I appreciate the time, so thank you. We are going to move forward to the meat and potatoes portion of this event. I want to thank you for all participating in that drum circle. Wasn't it awesome?
Yeah.
Yes, that might be something, leaders, that we do at summer camps or at our next all-staff meeting. I had them at the Renaissance Point summer camp last summer, and it was just really awesome. So some really great themes there and team building opportunities. So if you need his info, just go ahead and shout me out. I have the distinct honor and privilege today to make a very historic statement. I have the honor of introducing our very first female COO, who is one of the most very special people of my life. And I am here today because of her. And I know many of you have been touched by her life, by her leadership, by the legacy she's already left at such a young age in our organization. This person has been at the YMCA for over 15 years now and has distinctly worked her way up into the very prominent role that she holds today with an understanding of what each position of our Y entails. And I am so honored and thankful that right now I get to introduce our new Chief Operations Officer of the YMCA of Greater Fort Wayne, Tabitha Ervin. For you. Take it away.
I'm just up here to introduce our new CEO. She wanted a bio. No, cut it. Thank you very much. So it's always an honor when people remember that I hired them. So there's a couple of you in this room at some point that I hired or supported your journey in the Y, and I love that. That's what equals legacy to me. So I get really excited and kind of goosebumps like, oh, I did hire them. But just still being here and still being connected, this is your opportunity to do that outside of your branch with people who are not in your branch. So we are excited that you're here, and please continue to come to our events. We started this with you in mind. And so we also want to make sure that you are having fun, but you're learning. So this is the learning part. All right, so I have had the pleasure, this is week 7 in my new role. It's been a sprint and a long marathon all together at once to work with our new amazing CEO, Andrew Gritzmaker, who makes famous pancakes that he calls Grits Cakes. So if you ever get the pleasure of hanging out with us on a Friday, we'll invite people. Eventually, they're the best pancakes ever. Who has a boss who makes them pancakes, right? Like, amazing. So already a servant leader. He's a Fort Wayne native, went to Northside High School, graduated from PFW, and he has had a fair journey through our community, working at a variety of organizations, including Lutheran Hospital, Mad Anthony's Children's Hope House, which is now the Hope's Harbor. And you guys are going to learn a little bit more about his journey there in a minute, because he's going to show us a video. As well as, I like to just use the slang terms that he flipped habitat, but you know, I'm sure there's a more professional way to say that he helped them decrease debt. And they went from building 3 or 5 houses a year to 20 as he was leaving and joining us at the YMCA team. So super proud, super excited about what the next several years will look like with this amazing leadership. The Y is already great, and I feel like with him we're going to go to the moon. And I'm just really proud to be a part of the team that helps us get to the moon. I tell my husband at home all the time, I'm not stopping here, I'm going to the moon. So the Y is going to the moon with Andrew, so come on up.
My first rule of leadership is never follow Tabitha. Can't bring the energy. So I was thinking today, I know that the concept here is on leadership and reflecting on my time. There's been a lot of pivotal moments, but I was thinking about one specific experience that I had that completely changed the trajectory of my life. And you can only recognize those things in hindsight. And sometimes they're really small things. They're things that we don't even notice at the time, but when we look back, the dots are perfectly aligned. And we're like, that's why I had to go through that, or that's why so-and-so presented themselves in such a way in my life. And I don't know, do we have a video teed up?
Yep.
So I'm just going to start with a real quick video here. Towards the end of my time at the Mad Anthony's Children's Hope House, I was at a pivotal crossroads where I loved the work that I was doing. I loved the people that I had the opportunity to do that work with. And I was confident that I could retire there. I could spend the rest of my career at the Mad Anthony's Children's Hope House. And at the end of my time there, I would have looked back and said, man, that was a life well lived. And that was time well spent. And that was impact, great impact. But I also had this yearning inside of me that, I was not comfortable in complacency. And I felt like I was being called to do something else. And so I was at home riding my exercise bike one night, and I was watching Netflix, and I saw this documentary come on called Inspired to Ride. And it's a crazy bike race that starts in Portland, Oregon, and ends in Yorktown, Virginia, and it's 100% self-supported. As I was sitting there riding the bike, all these parallels started coming together about, man, what that experience would be like, look like, feel like, and how that experience would parallel what our families experience on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to start with a video, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about that journey, and then what led me to the YMCA. So. Potentially. That would be fine. So while we're trying to get that teed up, initially when I went to my board of directors and I said, hear me out, I was like, I want 30 days off of work. I'm going to ride my bicycle by myself across the United States, but I'm going to raise roughly 1 month of operating need, and at that time for us it was like $30,000. I'm going to use all my vacation time, and I'm going to pay for it out of pocket. As soon as I said I'm going to use my vacation time and I'm going to pay for it out of pocket, I said, get out of here. As long as you come back with 30K. And long story short, I'm 33 years old, and I'm the executive director for the Mad Anthony's Children's Hope House in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Beginning June 2nd, I'll start on the Trans Am race, which is a 4,200-mile bike ride. Wayne, Indiana. Beginning June 2nd, I'll start on the Trans Am race, which is a Sorry. Technical difficulty.
The IT department is messing up.
We'll get back to the video. We'll get it teed up. We'll come back, and if not, just
we will get this on.
shoot me an email. I threw a curveball anyway. It was last night. Tabitha just asked for a bio, and I said, "Hey, throw this video in there." Yeah. So from Astoria, Oregon to Yorktown, Virginia. I'll try to cover that distance in about 30 days, averaging about 140 miles each day. And I'm doing it for a fundraiser for the Children's Hope House. I've always wanted to do a cross-country bike ride. My passion for trying to do something this difficult wrapped up in my passion for the services we provide at Mad Anthony's Children's Hope House, and then the opportunity to potentially raise some funds and awareness. The reason I selected this is there's a lot of overlapping parallels between this bike ride and what our families face. At the Children's Hope House, we take care of individuals that have sick or injured children, premature children. We provide overnight accommodations, access to meals and laundry facilities, and have staff nearly around the clock to provide other comfort-giving amenities. So mom and dad can be well taken care of, stay close to their child at the hospital, well rested, and able to tackle any challenges that they face each day. That's why our home is so important. And they have to rely on the hospitality of perfect strangers, our staff, to take care of them and make sure that their family gets through this tough situation. Just like I am, going across the country, I'm going to have to rely on the hospitality of perfect strangers. I'm going to see firsthand what it's like to be away from the creature comforts of home. And then from a personal standpoint, there's all these things that make this extremely difficult for me. I'm not mechanically inclined, and it's a self-supported race, so if something were to happen on my bike, it's going to present a unique challenge to me. I'm not an outdoorsman by any stretch of the imagination, so just being out on the road for that long will test me in a lot of ways, and I'm a creature of habit, so I enjoy my comforts at home, the familiarity of friends and family. So I'm really trying to put myself in that mindset of what our family space, but I'm also pushing kind of the boundaries of what I like to experience on a day-to-day. Understanding that there will be waves, intermittent waves, where I'm extremely uncomfortable, but reminding myself that this is exactly what I signed up for, and that in the end, those times of adversity are going to be the things that help me grow. So accepting them and realizing that they're blessings.
Woke up this morning, sunrise in my eyes. Just like a new day, a breath of fresh air in my life. I don't know how, don't know why, but I'll be toasting all my life. My boots and briefcase are waiting at the door. My ride's sweeter to meet the one I love. I don't know how,
All right,
don't
let's
know why,
tackle who's your best.
I'll be toasting all my life. First time around, oh, sweeter, down here and now, oh, sweeter, first time around, oh, sweeter. I played the dice right, let the good times roll. One knee, one ring, forever it's our show. I don't know how and don't know why, but I'll be toasting all my life.
Oh, good.
How you doing, man?
Good. Good. Good to see you. So good to see you, man.
Oh, you can't wait to see what I brought you.
So I still get choked up when I watch that. And John, my good friend John Burkett, is a brilliant videographer, and he offered to fly out when I was in Colorado, so it was like 14 days in. And I was going through some really dark, hard times, and I was expecting to see him that day, but in a town that was like 25 miles further after a long day of riding. And so I'm going down this backcountry road in Colorado, and I see this skinny guy in the center of the road, and I knew it was John. So like going up to him, I'm already like emotional. Been on the road for 14 days, going through some of the most difficult, like mentally difficult things I've ever been through, not to mention the physical pain associated with it. And it was just so good to see a familiar face, and we take that for granted, right? We're surrounded by people that we love and care about every day, and when you take them or remove them from our circle, absence does really make the heart grow fonder. And little did I know that he flew my wife out there, and she jumped out of the back seat of the rental car to surprise me. So not a fair fight, but when I look back in this this July 4th actually, it'll be 5 years since I did that bike ride. And what struck me, every time I watch this is that moment when I'm talking about those times of adversity and recognizing that they're blessings, right? And so oftentimes we can't, because the circumstances and the situation seem too daunting, too unfair, too insurmountable, but recognizing that those are just opportunities brilliantly disguised as adversity. And I think, going across the country every single day was filled with those moments. So going back to the Children's Hope House, I'm thinking I'm going to do this really hard thing. I'm going to come back, and then I'm just going to settle in, and then I'll finish out my next 30 plus years at the Children's Hope House. At least that's what I was thinking in my 33-year-old head. And when I got back, I knew definitively that it was my time to go, but I didn't know what that next step was. And so I confided in one of my board members, Kylie Shirey, and I was like, hey, listen, I think I'm nearing the end of my time here. Don't want to leave, don't know what's next, but I think it's the perfect time to hand off the baton here. We're in great shape. And a little while later, she reached out to me and said, hey, Habitat for Humanity is looking for a new CEO. I think you'd be a great fit. And I read the job description, and I'm like, I failed 6th grade shop class. Like, I've never made a birdhouse, let alone built a house, right? And if you know anything about Habitat, there is a financing component where we underwrite and originate mortgages in-house. I certainly didn't have any experience there. So I called her back and I was like, yeah, you're crazy, you're out of mind, right? And she really was just persistent and encouraged me. And at that time, I had just listened to this podcast by Kristen Tibbett, and if you were at the annual kickoff breakfast, I talked about Dr. Keltner, but this was going way back on the Kristen Tibbett podcast, and there was a Jesuit priest, Father Greg Boyle from South Central LA. Is anybody familiar with him? He was in Fort Wayne maybe 2 years ago. And that podcast, they covered a lot of stuff, but at the heart of it was talking about, Father Greg Boyle was saying, everything I do is to create this circle of compassion, and then I imagine no one standing outside that circle of compassion. And then my only job is to make sure I'm inviting people in and getting closer to them and understanding that we're more similar than we are difficult. And for whatever reason, I was like, if I'm going after this job, that's going to be my focus. Like, if I'm going into this situation knowing that I know nothing about construction and banking, all I can really share is just like my ability to envision this circle of compassion and then work tirelessly to make sure no one's on the outside of it. If I can do that, everything else will take care of itself. So I wrote a cover letter with a brief synopsis about my time at the hospital, and then leading to the Children's Hope House and my experiences there, and how I envisioned all of our societies being that way, our communities being that way, and the places that we live and work. And I get a call immediately. I send off my cover letter to my board member and like, hey, can you take a look at this, proof it, whatnot. She calls me back and she's crying. And she's like, that's the first and last time a cover letter is ever gonna make me cry. And so I'm like, maybe I got a shot at this. And sure enough, there I show up at Habitat for Humanity, and as Tabitha shared, it was not in great shape. There was a heavy debt load, failure to execute missionally, culturally bankrupt. And so we got to work. And in hindsight, it was kind of a blessing stepping into that situation, because I was well prepared and fortified coming off that bike ride to do some really hard things. And I'm not recommending anybody do that. I would probably never do that again. There's a lot of things that we have control of in our daily lives and our weekly lives to remind ourselves of just how impactful we can be. Everybody says you don't know how strong you are until you have to be, and we always like, it's overplayed, right? But it really is, like, the human spirit is indomitable. It's and we come from a faith community here, right? And in general, when you understand that you're divinely made and appropriately prepared, and there's no coincidence, even if you have to look backwards and connect dots at sometimes to understand why you went through what you went through, like that moment in time, you're uniquely capable to execute whatever you've been called to do. And the next nearly 4 years at Habitat for Humanity the first 3 were absolutely terrible, for lack of a better word. It was just hard. Everything was uphill. And then in the middle of it, as you guys experienced, we had COVID, we had the pandemic and supply chain disruptions, and all these things kept happening. And it was like, and some of you I've talked to, I was just at a leadership event last week, so sorry if there's any redundancy here, but you know, I would reach this point at Habitat last summer where I'd gone away on vacation. It was finally fun. Like, we had things in place. Like, I was like, man, I can actually relax and come back from vacation. I have like 20 emails. And in the middle of summer, when we're building 19 houses under construction, my phone's not ringing. And I felt immediately back to that point where I was at Children's Hope House. I was like, man, I don't want to leave, but I'm getting called someplace else. Like, it's ready to hand the baton off. And so this opportunity comes up at the YMCA, and I have a couple conversations with confidants and some people that are well connected and affiliated with the organization. And initially, my prayer was very simple. God, just shut this door. I'm not ready to go. I want to live here for a little bit. I want to be comfortable for a little bit. I'm not ready to move on yet. And the door just kept getting wider and wider and wider until here I am today. And although my prayer at that time was selfish, I understand, like, I'm so excited to be a part of this team. And the more I get integrated into the YMCA and understand the depth of the service, the depth of the heart behind everything we do and within each of you, it's just continuously reaffirming the reason that I'm here and get to participate in this good work with you guys. And so I look back at that pivotal time, and yeah, that's definitely something big that shifted the direction of my life. But my encouragement to you is to continue to lean into the hard things that you have every day that reinforce who you are and why you're here and why we all choose to show up and do this great work. And then my hope and my promise of being a partner in this work with you is just to continuously be an advocate for you and a great steward of the resources we've been entrusted, and none greater than the stewardship of you as human beings and making sure that you have the tools and resources not only to do a great job, but to lead a great life and to love exceptionally well. So I know I've got 20 minutes on the clock here, but I'm going to go ahead and pause there and then open it up for some Q&A. And it could be about my leadership journey in general, or I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about my first 90 days here. And nothing's off the table. I'm happy to answer anything. Sure. And Amos and Tabitha and Amanda can't ask me any questions because they know all my weak spots. Who else is up here? Eric is tucked in there. They can't ask me any questions because they know all my weaknesses. No, I'm joking.
Do you still do any cycling at the Y?
Ooh, I don't do any cycling at the Y.
Traumatized.
I didn't bike for like a year. So in that bike race, it took me 31 days, 22 hours to bike 4,200 miles. So I was on the bike anywhere from 8 to 15 hours a day. For a month straight. I went over the Continental Divide 4 times, the Rockies and the Appalachian Mountains. So I took a long time off cycling, and now I'm just starting to get reacquainted in the cycling community, but definitely no cycling class.
Okay, Christiana, question. I just want to let you know the organization that you're representing is phenomenal. This past November, I was in Florida. My father was at the final stage of his life, and I was basically residing in his memory care facility. I reached out to our Y here. I had taken a leave of absence, and I reached out to our director and asked, hey, is there, do I have my membership still? There's a Y right down the road. My hotel's 40 minutes away, and I can just shower at that Y. Within minutes, Christy had it done. And I walked into that other Y in Florida, and they took care of me for those 2 weeks that I was there. And it was just a blessing to know that I could call and that she took it and took care of it for me.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that story and the difficulties associated with it. I think that's readily apparent. Like, the Y is a movement, and it gets, sometimes we take it for granted what that really means, but it's about a fortified community of great people that want to support and love each other well. And, I think that's been readily apparent at the Y. We got a lot of people that align.
Are you are you a traveling pancake maker? Would you come over?